Hey, welcome to Conversation with Jim Anderson. And you know what I'm going to say? They're not like us. We got to hear y'all. So, hey, look, you know what we're doing right on till November? We're going to be bringing topics and we're going to be having some political shakeup no matter what the topic is. And we got another one right back in your lap and something you're going to have to confront and deal with. And it's around education. And before I tell you who our guest is today, let me just say you can join the conversation at 716-837-1112. And let me give you the front end play. Whole lot of people are out running for something, and a lot of people have been out trying to get their petitions filled. So naturally, you probably done encountered somebody's. And, a lot of time when people are running for elective office, they like to aim at running for the school board because a lot of people think that's one of the entrance doors in, and it might be. So while there are a lot of people running for the school board, I wonder how many of y'all, if y'all were to call me in and tell me what they're running about, what they're gonna do, what's their program, why, and what are their plans? Are they running for the job because it pays a little bit more to be on the school board, or are they running because they understand the issues we face in our community? Like suspension is it's still something a question, the right and wrong of it, and who. And not only that, the fact that so many young people can't read. With so many schools and little clubs we got Sunday school, we got block clubs, we got little community club, and you mean our children can't read? Well, anyway, we need the school board to speak to that and a whole lot of other issues. But I'm gonna stop there because my co-host is in, and I don't need to say too much more other because Austin always come in late. I don't want to get him in no trouble. I don't want him to hurt nobody today with what he had to say, but he will do his thing. And hello.
Good morning, Buffalo. The rain blew me in. It was raining out there pretty hard. How you doing, DJ Shaw? Got my jeans two-tone now. Got a half gray, half dark gray. The rain was doing some damage, but I'm glad to be here. We have a guest who I know has been around the community, has been doing work. I got to experience and talk to Mr. Payne before, so I'm excited for the interview to hear what he talks about.
Dig it. I got one of these.
Yeah, see, I didn't prep ahead.
They call it an umbrella, y'all. Don't you go out the house without it. You look like the sky might clear up. Guys, you should carry an umbrella. It might help somebody. I mean, look, okay. I mean, helping the elderly and, some of them other targets you'd be looking at. I'm just giving you a little hint from back in the day, the umbrella thing. Okay, we back on the show, and that was a freebie. But like I said, it's a serious subject, the education piece, and today we're going to be talking about that in the context of chaos or the community. Where are we? And our guest is going to talk a little bit about that. And by the way, our guest is James Payne. There will probably be other that may join us or may try to call in. And either way, we got James, and we're going to roll with that. And I know you know James, but I'll let him give you some descriptions of himself that he would like you to know. And with that said, welcome, Jay.
Thank you for having me here. First, I want to say I appreciate everything that you guys do here at WUFO Ruffo.
All right.
You have always opened the airwaves up to me when I was in Ferguson, Mike Brown, for Trayvon Martin, in Florida, for every endeavor. When I snuck off to Haiti and things of that nature, you made sure I stayed in touch with you. So certainly, it's a pleasure being here today. But I'm here this morning because I want to share with your listening audience. I another endeavor that's taking place at Friendship Baptist Church here in the city of Buffalo. I'd like to say hello to our pastor, Pastor Jackson, and to the Friendship family here in the city of Buffalo. Once again, Friendship is a church also outside of the walls where we reach into the community in terms of educating and empowering our people in relationship to a variety of issues. Our issue at this particular point is the issue of public education here in the city of Buffalo, New York. And what we are doing September the 12th at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., having a forum titled, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or to the Community? The effort to address the educational needs of our students, to address the educational agenda within our community, that agenda having one or the lack thereof, having the opportunity to meet school board members, and especially those individuals that are running for those 3 at-large positions here in the city of Buffalo. That's certainly integral because those 3 individuals represent the city as a collective entity. And what we want to be able to do is enlighten our community in terms of the policies that exist within the Buffalo Board of Education, what our people could do as parents in terms of emphasizing and assisting the endeavor regarding education within the city of Buffalo, and being in a position to empower our children specifically in terms of them being able to use education as a motivational tool to address the deficiencies existing within our community, and also using education as a medium in terms of increasing the economic opportunity and political opportunities existing within our community.
You know, right now, with the elections going on, and I'm glad with this upcoming educational piece that Friendship will be doing, I keep thinking about the many people I ran in the street that have been doing petitioning and asking people to vote for them, but haven't been talking a lot about what they represent. And I'm not so annoyed with them as I would be for our citizens who have to do the voting. And I want to appeal to you that with all these elections coming up, if you don't know what these people stand for, if you haven't heard what their platform is, don't you take it from a friend. Don't take it from me. Don't take it from nobody else. Make sure you know why you're voting for the person you're voting for. Don't care how nice they look, how nice they sound, how nice clothes they wear. On the issues as it relates to the needs in education, you need to understand where are they at on that and what do they bring to the table. And let's be honest, we know we got some people, when it comes to elections, they're fighting people rather than presenting policy. And we don't have time for that. And the only way they get away with it if we, the people, allow them to bring that kind of crap before us. So as you hear about these different forums that will come up, as you hear about what's happening on September 12th, we really need to pay attention and get in those huddles to find out what's being said. And if it's not being said, start pushing it forward. At the beginning of the show, when I mentioned about the problem of where our children can't read on grade level, when I think about it, we as a community should be mad as heck. And we all indicted, not only those in the education system, but we in the community. And so I'm just saying, this education, this election around school board is important. You need to find out what are they going to do to change the dynamic that we have. Now, James, I know you're a teacher as well.
Yeah, I've done some teaching.
And you know some of the needs that we need. And so I'm, if I'm speaking wrong, I want you to, enlighten me. But the conditions around that is terrible. And I would also include the other positions that people run for. Everybody claims they're going to give some money to the school district. School district always needing And many people that run for the council are talking about what they're going to do to the school district instead of talking about what they're going to do within the community at the level and the real responsibility they have. So this whole subject matter, well, I'm trying to be gentleman.
Let's go to the root. The first teacher that a child has is a parent, and the question ultimately is, what are we teaching at home that will empower our children before they get to the brick and mortar educational system? What is going on at home? Is home conducive to learning? Is home conducive to education? Are parents reading to their children? Are parents focused on an agenda that will ultimately empower their kids, empower their children? And as a result of that, empowering the educational system. Because I think it's important that we don't only depend on the public school system to engage in the educational aspect in terms of empower our children. What is the responsibility of our churches, our community centers, our block clubs, those people that have direct access to our kids? That's the question. And then being in a position, and why it's important for us to understand the significance of the Buffalo Board of Education in terms of those individuals that sit there, enforce policy, and implement the policy throughout the school system. Why is it important as a community to know what they do? And why is it important for us to be an informed community? But also the most important aspect is, what is our educational agenda as it relates to the empowerment of our children? And one of the things that I've always tried to advocate for is that we be focused as a community on vocational and technical education, hands-on skills, moving in a direction in which education empowers our children. Even if they don't go to college, they should have a marketable skill in which they can use in terms of being able to survive within this society. You cannot graduate out of a high school and not be able to read, write, and count.
I want to corral something on that first part of what you said about first teacher and unbeknownst to Latasha and you too, Austin, when he mentioned about parent, family, parent being the first teacher, and I said, what came to mind? I said, well, I got some first teachers in here, kind of, sort of. I hope I actually thought what about that around that comment and so forth.
Oh, there's the thing right there. For me as a parent, okay, so I don't get yelled at. I'm on the here. As a parent, I do agree. I think that, I was just talking to someone earlier, and I hope I don't get beat up too bad, but even just having two parents versus one, raising kids it's no easy feat, especially in today's society where most people have to have two parents working unless you're planning to not have that happen, because it's just really expensive to have one parent work in the home, one parent work outside of the home. But for us, because when we had kids, that was really important. We just did some non-traditional things to make the sacrifice to be available to our kids to do the things that you talk about. Like, all my kids knew how to write their names and to know basic sight words before they even started preschool, because it was a partnership in the home. My husband had more patience. I would say, hurry up and do whatever. And he would take the time to go through the letters and doing that partnership on who has what strength. And we were both avid readers. So I was broken in business, but we spent our time at Borders because I'm like, y'all can play and we can read, because I can't afford the books, but they always saw us reading. And so I do think that that's important, but I'm also learning in today's society that the decisions that parents are faced with and all the things, and there are a lot of single parents. I don't know how I would have did it by myself. I really don't know how I would have did it by myself. So I do think it's important, but you have to be very intentional and willing to make some sacrifices when you have your kids, if you want to start them out with a good start.
Okay.
guess as the kid.
Oh, I wasn't thinking in that way.
Yeah, as the kid, I did read a lot. Like I was telling my friends the other day, like I read a lot. I had a lot of books. I still do read. And it does start at home. The expectations that are instilled at the home. I know we've talked so much. It's a community-based show, and one of the phrases that stuck with me is that I use is that the younger generations of a society reflect the expectations of those who came before them. Meaning, we're always going to live up to exactly what you think that we are. There was a hyper focus, I remember when I was young, on a generation of thinkers who were prepared for technology. And you got that, right? You got a generation of thinkers who were prepared for technology. I don't think there was an emphasis on a generation of doers, on a generation of executors, on a generation of analysts. I think we just wanted to be very technically competent, which we are, but then we also are lacking some other skills. And so I think that especially or because of my blessed position in my household, there were certain things that were expected. And there were certain things that I was allowed to see because of the people that my parents were. Whether my dad worked midnights. So I got to see him a lot later in the day. But it also gave me an image of what consistency looks like. Because every day, right before I would go to sleep, I would see this man putting on his uniform, getting ready to go to work. No complaints, making it happen. On the flip side, during the day, I had my mom who was in business, right? Making dynamic moves and seeing how those kind of affected the family. But within that, there were expectations that even as we were young, that we were going to have a certain level of grade expectation, right? Of extracurricular expectation. And so I think that my thing that I always harp on and I always talk about, I don't think that young people don't want to be successful. I don't think parents don't want to parent. I think there is, to your point, a very severe disconnect in the abilities for a lot of parents in Buffalo to be a good role model, because whether it's the communicational skills or just the circumstances brought upon them, a lot of young people don't have an image for what they should be doing, nor do parents have the words to explain to them why, even if it's not the life that you're currently seeing in front of you, these are the things you should be doing to set yourself up for success. So I think there's a lot of communicational issues. Like you said, if I'm not a reader myself, do I have the skills to help my young son or daughter understand why reading is still important? Because if I'm a young person, what I was hearing in the household a lot of times is okay, Austin, you're saying you want to have money and be an entrepreneur, right? It's great you can look things up, but when a contract's in front of you, do you know how to read? Oh, I don't know. Like it wasn't just my mom and dad saying read to read. Right. And so even if they weren't reading, they had the skills to help me understand why, okay, maybe you don't like math and maybe you're never going to use these things after. My dad used to always say, math isn't about the numbers, it's about learning how to think and process. So even when I was in math and I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to use this again, I was still applying myself because there was a goal, there was a benefit to be taken away. But that wasn't magically dropped upon me. That were the communicational skills that my parents have. So I know I always talk about communication because I teach it and that's what my business is in. But I have that business because I think that it's important. And that's where, to your point, that communication before we ever go to school is important.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I got to do a sidebar before Mama gets mad. My mom was a single mom. So I do want to say my mom became a widow at 36 years old. Unexpected. They bought a house in the suburbs. My father got lung cancer, never smoked, no bad habits, and died quickly. So their plan was whatever. But the difference in my mother, even though my mom and dad did not graduate from college, my mother exposed us to things and was not afraid. So you have this young Black woman in West Seneca, a widow. So, you know, everybody thought it was all but the widow, right? Who walked in excellence and authority and showed us. So she set the bar really high. Like, you know, even though I wasn't the best student, I was going to make it work because my mom, listen, all kinds of, I was not blending into the you got to be twice or three times better just to be average. All those stories happen. And so she was a single woman, but my mom also depended on a village and not who you thought it was. She got to know those neighbors. And if their kids did football, she had us do football. If she read about something, she put us in those things and she wasn't afraid. I said, I don't know how you did that. Trusted us with these things. But as a single woman who is very well respected, I can't find anyone to say something bad about my mother. And sidebar, the last thing I'm gonna say, because it's not my show, but even when I was telling someone yesterday, my mom was a widow at 36, and I'm not judging nobody. I don't ever remember a man staying at our house. My mother was a leader of that house. She was a woman of God who walked that out holistically. I never saw my mother choose a man before us. And what she said was, when I became a widow, I guess God said that you guys became the priority. And so she's now 80, never remarried. But because she honored God with every aspect of her life, God now honors her at 80 with a sound mind, her health, her capacity to do things and show us stuff. So I'm just saying that, looking good, right? And so I'm just saying, so for those single women, I can't say that because she was a widow, but she fought past every stereotype, because every excuse she had to tap out, she could have, and she didn't. And so I guess it can be done. And maybe my mom was stronger than me, but she just showed us a different way. And so either way it goes, it was an expectation.
I want to, wow, you should be talking continuously. One of the things you mentioned when you first started out was not only how you had the good fortune of having a husband that raised the kids, but understanding what it is also to raise a child by yourself, and that it must be hard. And I think that makes a point, listeners, to us that are hearing this, is that, in our community, we have people who are trying to do it by themselves, and even some two families trying to do it that is hard for. And that's where you can't just be rappers of talking about it takes a village. That's where you really have to be. And what I'm pushing at, this is where, if we really care for one another, that's why I'm kind of pushing on block club. If we really a block club, you're trying to imply your block. Then some of the needs and where some help would be wonderful to have if it could get there. And I'm saying, where you have able-bodied people on the block, you got to find a way to help empower your own block, not just yourself, the people who live on there. And I'm just saying, that's what's not showing up. We got all these raps about being a city of good neighbors, but we don't do it. And we had the examples in our household. I'm not saying you got to go raise somebody else's family, but when I think of collectives like Block Club, I'm saying you got a grouping of people who can do something. I mean, on the subject of reading, a 1 hour reading program on Saturday where you take turns offering young people on the block and even some adults who may need it, some lessons in reading. I'm just pushing beyond the box and the comfortability that we in, and then responding to what is often the community chime, or we want to do better. We do better when we do better. And what you hear in opportunities that play before us is like you hear James talk about the program coming up on September 12th. Well, September 12th is not like, go see a movie and wow. No, it is a real gathering to really think about, where are we as a community? What can we do as a community? You really start digging into this. And every school board member ought to be showing up to events like this.
Absolutely.
You know how you gonna run and represent concerns of the community if you're not where the community's showing up? Community bigger than your fundraiser. I'm just saying. Anyway, James, Mike is all yours. Don't let me get you in trouble.
All smoke welcome.
Okay.
So the thing is this again. You know that phrase when we started 100 Black Men, and that motto is they'll be what they see. And the thing is, our children will be what they see. And if we're not
got a witness,
and if we're not projecting the kind of things that should be done systemically, then we find ourselves in a community where there is no direction or purpose. And, as there exists a great deal of confusion in terms of confrontations that take place within the school system, but the school system is a microcosm of what is taking place within the community. So when you're dealing with if you fail to deal with the problems within our own community, then certainly you're failing to address those problems within the school system. Mm-hmm. The school system reflects, again, what is going on or what is not taking place within our community. So if we're not going to meetings as it relates to education and not talking with school board members, then certainly we're negating the significance in terms of what should be taking place in our communities and at our schools. I heard somebody say one time, Jim, that if you can't read at school, you certainly can't read at church school.
All right, and that's what we should be at. And it's not to shame you, Sunday school teacher. We all know that we all know from our own experiences being in classes, coming through the years in Sunday school, where boy, wouldn't it have been nice to learn to read rather than just pointing out and sitting in a room like you getting it when they can do more. Our Sunday school teachers, if the school district was to bring some of the skills with how to identify a problem reader and help them forward, and some of the things that help kids quick, grow in their ability to read. Imagine if Sunday school teacher could help do that, and I think it would put back in, uh, spiritual growth and education go hand in hand. And I think it would have a different flavor. I think you would see a lot more pride and glad to go to school. When we were little kids, used to be excited. I'm going to school. Everybody used to be excited to go, and every year when it came time to go back to school, excited to go back. What happens when they suddenly change? Seem like around time 5th grade on, don't want to be in school. Part of it is they're in a building where they're ill prepared to read and receive instruction a lot of times. You see parents who fussing and cussing a child all the way out the door down the street. How a kid gonna walk into a class and be ready to learn? Anyway, I'm just saying there's some real things we should be facing, and those who run for school board, you need to talk on real issues and real solutions about what we can do in the community. I mean, 'cause let's face it, it ain't like you're going to be bringing in a whole lot of money. You don't have to front. Just find out what are the real issues and the best way you can do something in the community. And you need to start talking soon so people can get familiar with you. I know you're doing fundraisers, but you don't need all that money to run for the school board. Who started that with some other people when they tried to take over? If you got a relationship with the people, I don't think you have to worry about the money.
Relationship with the people.
But you gotta have a relationship with the people.
You must have a relationship.
See,
and the litmus test of that relationship is contingent upon what you do before you decide to run for political office. That's the test. How have you served the community?
Mm-hmm.
What have you done other than engaging in a whole lot of rhetoric? And whether or not you've been able to bring people collectively together in terms of organizing and educating. It's kind of like the Freedom School concept that there's always some learning that should be taking place within our community, even on Saturdays and Sundays. And the thing that I think is important for school board members to do is to be able to address how can we be effective within this community when the school doors are locked, and whether or not at any particular point in time should those school doors be locked. Because when I was a child, we had after school. You had after school gym,
summer school,
you had everything. Summer school
not only just for academics, but we learned swimming at school.
Exactly. And school was an integral part of the community. And how do we get back to that point when, in fact, I think those kind of programs and those kind of efforts help to reduce an idle mind and allow you to have planning and allow you to be about the business of doing a variety of different things, because you know you have somewhere to go and something to do.
We're headed to a commercial break, so I was about to respond to that, and I'll maybe respond when we get back. But we'll be here, people, if you stay with us. If you want to call in again, 716-837-1112. See you.
Yeah. This issue is huge because a lot of time people think about just the school board and somehow getting people elected to the school board, they're supposed to do magic. and we forget the stuff that's supposed to happen at ground zero in our communities. And that's what's so sad because you,
But even looking at from let's look at it from this perspective, because a lot of young folk, they don't pay anything attention to much of anything except the dollar. And we need to be able to and we need to be able to draw that correlation between that education and economics. Now in Buffalo and Erie County, in Buffalo, the average household is $24,400, but the average white household is about $43,752. So those people who are utilizing the system of education has used it in terms of empowering themselves economically, being able to pass down from one generation to the other some semblance of wealth. On the other hand, we're on a continuous basis. Our families within our community, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul every time. Also, those people who have been able to acquire education have been able to own their homes. Significant number of Black folk in the city of Buffalo are renters.
Hello, Buffalo. We are back. I sorry I didn't mean to grab it from you. I'm just going to say it again. You can call in at 716-837-1112. We were talking just about education and how it pertains to our community and even the politics within it. As we left off, I don't know if I want to necessarily continue. We were talking about off the air, but as we left off, we were kind of talking a little bit about, and I'm trying to draw my memory exactly back to what we were talking about. So I know we just ended talking
the
about
economic,
but the economic empowerment, the economic real correlation. And that goes back to even we were talking about with my mom and my dad, being able to help me understand why I was in school was for me more than for them. Because what I see for a lot of people my age is I'm in school for my parents. That's why when I get to college, it's like a whole world shift. Wait, you want me to choose? Wait, this is on me? And so what do most young people do? They don't pick the degree they're happy with. They pick the degree their parents are happy with. If my dad's great-grandfather was a dentist and everybody down was a dentist, what's the odds of me being a dentist? Even if I liked art, I'm probably going to be a dentist because it's just a lot of young people aren't comfortable or haven't even been exposed to enough to choose what they want. I was at an event yesterday tabling at Northland where I work. And I asked the young man, his parents brought him over and said he doesn't want to do anything. I said, okay, well, you tell me, if you had it your way, anything was on the table, any job available, you could be a streamer, you could be an athlete, what would you pick? He said, I don't know. And I don't think he was really saying, I don't know, because he didn't want to answer, but he really probably didn't know. Or if he knew, didn't feel like he had the freedom to even express what he really wanted to do. Because if you don't understand this value behind it, you're never going to feel like it's a real option. Another thing I was told time and time again is you can make money doing anything well enough. So it opened up my options. And so this is why I go back to that point of communication is a major issue that I see. How can I advocate for my kid to be something that I'm not? Because that's what maybe a lot of listeners may be hearing. Okay, I want my kid to be in this place that I'm not even. How can I advocate to that point, right? Even if we're talking about as a community, what are we raising, right? Being intentional. We can't even come together collectively to identify what we're trying to raise as a community. We couldn't have the conversations for it.
Well, I love that you sounding off like that, because I think it's moments like that that give us a chance to sharpen the pencil. And I know I got a pencil sharpener over there, and I got one over here. You first.
Yeah, so I think, and so I wasn't here a couple of weeks ago because I did the STEAM camp at a church, a very small congregation, but my mother, I go back to her big thing was, and she instilled in us, but she showed it. She didn't say it. She just instilled it to us. And I'm a firm believer that if you are exposed to something different, you have the opportunity to think that it's possible for you. So with that camp, it's simple things, because that happened for me. And I say that, like, my first career at 24, I was flying on private planes. Right? Like, that was my job, managing $1 million budget for a huge organization. So I'm like, well, that's possible for me. What can I do for these kids? So silly things like good food. Everyone laughs at me with these camps. I want them to eat a good meal every time, and they have choices. I'm not saying no. And someone challenged me on that. Our job is not to fill their bellies up. Yes, it is. That's mine. With some good food. Or when we went to our outing, I wanted them to not be on a yellow bus. I wanted them to experience an executive coach. So they went, Giorgio Limousine worked with me on a price that was very comparable to a yellow bus. But I want to say, how many leaders would have said that that was important for a little kid to get on a bus and say, this is nice. So they experience something different. And so I think in these communities, sometimes it's a matter of, I don't even know better. And then my last point, before the camp opened, months before it opened, I had to get out of my comfort zone to establish a relationship in a community that I did not understand. So if it's kids shooting dice in the street, hey, what's up? I'm not going to whatever. You smoking weed? Hey, how are you? My name is Latasha. Not casting no judgment. You have a business? How can we take it to the next level? So you have to really push yourself in uncomfortable ways to meet people where they are. And sometimes that can be a challenge.
Indeed. I love it that you're laying that out, because in Austin, here's where I was going also with the pencil sharpening. As you mentioned, you said, like, when parents are saying, urging you to be something that they're not, how can you be that they're not? And I want you to know, change it, because we're actually, our growth as a people is predicated on that. Because if you look back in slavery days, and the urging on to, as we begin not only fighting for our freedom there, but breaking free. When you look at all those stalwarts who urged their children to be more than what they themselves were or could even display, just the warmth and the kind of admiration for a future like that has power. And they didn't just do it like that, because they were praying folks back there too. So they also could connect it to something solid. But the point is that I want you and other young people never defy when their parents or an adult is expressing some possibility to them that to them seems like, I'm gonna be that. You're not even that. No. See, if they knock down the wall that is in one's mind about what they can't be, if they knock down that wall, you're going to see a whole lot of things you could be. Not only what they mentioned, but stuff that you ain't even thought about or that they haven't mentioned. You're going to see it somewhere, and you're going to think about, wow, I bet I could do that. And so that's all I'm saying, that the key is always, even if you're not that they are urging you, as long as they're not urging you to run into a brick wall or to jump off a mountain. But on those things that just seem like too high, no, they're saying reach for the sky. You got a hand reaching down from there too.
Anyway, absolutely. And we can keep this sharp and wrong to this point. I completely understand what you're saying. You never have to be to prophesize or push someone to be greater. That's our job as a community. Can we push you to a tomorrow that we maybe never seen? The question becomes, do we have the communication skills when you're walking a journey that we've never seen to understand? If you've worked your whole life for 40 years and you want your son or daughter to be an entrepreneur, do you understand, or do you have the skills to understand when they haven't left their room for a week? Well, what are you doing in there? Money doesn't just walk on itself. Or do you have the skills to ask, well, what are you doing in there? How does that pertain to your goal? And if there's areas where you think you can improve, do you have the skills to be able to give advice, knowing you're not the expert, though you're the authority? There are these questions that I'm asking and that I don't know if my community has the communication skills to do. Do we have the communication skills to help someone understand why this math test that you're taking right now is going to help you in a career that I've never seen? That's my question that I'm putting on the table. And I'm not to say that there's not an answer. That's not to say that there aren't even people who have the answer throughout the community. But do we have the communication skills as a community to even ask those authorities those questions on how to do that? I don't see my people doing it. And it's not to say that we can't, but it's also to say that we cannot act like we are just choosing not to do this, and there aren't people who genuinely don't have the skills to even be the parents that they want to be. And if I was a young parent who wanted to learn how to communicate better, where would you push me in my community? That becomes even the question. So I just believe there are some things, some actual skill deficiencies that make it difficult for every parent to be able to push somebody to be something that they've never seen. That's just what I believe. It's not saying it's not possible, and it's important because that's the only way we progress, but we have to be able to do it.
And you're right. And that is one of the focuses in relationship to this forum, that we have a community agenda, listening to young people such as yourself, understanding those dynamics that are taking place within our community, being able to share ideas and to be able to talk to each other as opposed to talking at each other. Certainly, we can learn as much from young people as much as they learn from us. So therefore, this forum is open in that fashion, not only to people, old people like me and Jim, but also to young people such as yourself, in terms of being able to pass down a legacy, have an agenda, and then being able to implement that particular process.
I think you have helped James and Latasha here, because I do know that people who are a little, they think you older folks have a little challenge for it. I'm with you, bro. I think that what you raised is just a reminder to we again, the community, all us listeners, is that you're expressing what many young people feel. And part of the problem is there's the absence of that. Not everybody is going around urging our young people to be all they can be. A lot of people are going around talking with suspicion of them. A lot of people are going around talking about what they don't know, instead of talking about what they taught any of you. You don't hear them talking about that. You can't go out and find me 10 free places with unique opportunities for young people that are out there. You can't find me 10. We got these sort of like cookie kind of cut program that need to be measured. Just because they hang out a sign don't mean they're delivering. And meaning well and doing well is two different things. And we let too much, whether it's a store business or whether it's a community unit, hang out a shingle meaning well when the work they're doing is not doing well. And we need to confront that, because that's the same issues with our politicians. Our politicians, they come around like they're doing well. You got a community crying out with a bunch of needs, pointing out a bunch of problems. And they walk around like as if they're doing good, when we should be running them away from the community because they're already gone away. How the heck you be in the community, know the issues, and then get amnesia when you get to the power seat? I'm just saying, I'm the annoyance our community should have is that those who are not pulling the load that they should pull at the higher level, and then among our everyday action, we got to stop letting any old thing slide by. And young people should be disappointed in us, but not give up. Because if you think there should be a better world, you have to help us to learn how to make it with you.
But I need to say the one thing for parents, like if I had to advise parents, because I have 3 kids with non-traditional paths, different than I had anticipated. And I think the message to the parent is, for the parents who are involved, the reason sometimes kids do those things, which go to school for what their parents expect, is because the parent believes the kid's process is an extension or reflection on what they did as a parent. And so when Austin, who graduates with a 4.0 from Canisius with 12 AP courses, says to me, I want to take a gap year, the immediate question is, well, what did your parents say? Well, parents said, I support that. So then people would talk to me and say, well, what's the time limit on that? And I said, well, as an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, it's a process.
That's right.
And even the job he has right now, there's a strategy behind every step that Austin takes. And so people don't understand that. So when I'm having conversations, and I just had this conversation in full transparency on the radio, is like, I would avoid conversations because people would ask me questions about my kids. And I would say, they weren't what I expected, but it's not that any of them are doing bad. And what I had to realize is I did and presented every opportunity, but what I'm happy about is now they are living their lives and we can have authentic conversations about their lives right now. And a lot of parents don't want to have the real conversation about the kids' lives right now. So a lot of their peers come to me because they can't have these conversations with their parent on, I'm in my 3rd year at this school and I hate it. I wish I could talk to my parents how you're at least looking at some options. And the reason why I say that is because non-traditional, if we're talking about the money thing, is a lot of millionaires don't have advanced degrees if they graduated from high school. And I understand that as Black people, we need to have some things, but I need to talk to the parents to say, let your kids be able to one of the things Austin taught me is in this generation, it's unlike when we grew up. They can choose us when they graduate. And if they choose not to choose us, it's a lot of parents that do not have relationships with their kids right now, not real ones. They might see them, but they're like, why don't they take my call? He taught me, well, when I see your call, what does it represent to me? And so when we talk to parents who are involved, it's just as important as the ones we think that are not, because the smart kids are hurting too.
Yep.
We just aren't seeing it yet.
Yep.
It's just the distance that happens on why I had to relocate and suffer somewhere and my parents don't even know what's going on in my life.
Right.
And so I just want to offer that up to the parents, because that's a really important perspective for those who are involved, doing the best that they know to do for their kids. But it's a different world that we live in right now. And the top jobs that are doing things are not even things that we could think of in our minds to even advise our kids to go forward with. So I just want to offer that perspective for parents, because it's hard when you have non-traditional kids, when you can't advocate and get out of your own stuff. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, I'm proud of all my kids for where they are right now, like right now today, because I know it's a journey. And I'm glad that we're talking about that journey authentically in ways that a lot of my friends and peers wouldn't allow their kids to have those conversations, because you did your job when they're 18 and they've graduated.
Well, again, and I agree with you. And the theme is really correct at this particular point. Where do we go from here? Chaos or the community?
Right.
If they're hurting at home, they're hurting at school.
Yeah.
And the question is, what do we do? Do you know, I've seen more kids consistently at community centers than I've seen them at school. And the truth of the matter is, there has to be a mechanism in place where resources can be at these community centers, where they have viable programs that are working with our kids, empowering our kids, and putting them in a position to see themselves in a different light.
Love that.
And a lot of times we just think money should be going directed towards the schools. That's true, because there's some needs for improvement, but there's some other things that need to be done. We need to have some options, because if the school is not working for a student 8 to 4, then certainly what are the alternatives? Some of these community centers can do an excellent job in terms of working with our kids, because as you pointed out, kids are coming and talking to you. So therefore they have a personal relationship with you. And some of our kids do need to have a relationship with someone that they can talk with, be able to resolve problems with, being able to understand that there's other ways to address problems than going about it in terms of going downtown Buffalo and fighting. And there's some benefits in terms of addressing and providing resources within community centers, because they're going to community centers. They spend a lot of time at community centers. So why not be learning at community centers? We need these early intervention programs where we get, with parents incapable of being able to teach their children, then there ought to be a program where they can walk out their door, up the street or around the corner, where they can go ahead and introduce education to their child. The problem is, and it goes back to what we said initially, is our ability to communicate what should be taking place within our community in order to empower our people. And that's why we want to talk with school board members. I think we have a brilliant superintendent. And I think the superintendent is certainly desirous of coming in and listening to the community and working with the community. But first, we need to work within ourselves in terms of having an agenda, a sound agenda, and not just having it from people such as myself and Jim, but also from young people in terms of what you need to know in relationship to this system, to this world, to our global community.
See, and that's why I put pressure on school board members, or not only members, but those who are running. I think we have to recognize the shift in how we have to approach the issues around families and education. With the things we just got through talking about, that's not where their focus has been. Their focus has been about talking about how much they're going to change the system. And usually they'll talk about they don't usually talk about it, but they'll do what they have, maybe a little book club. Well, school board member, you don't necessarily have to do that, because there are a lot of programs that will do it. I'd rather see you use your power to organize the adults that voted for you, that at the level of voting for you, to help them do more. And to talk about real issues, because some people who vote for you, some of the issues we just talked about that are problems have that, but they don't have any vacuum in which they can talk about it in. I dare say, even when they do the big gatherings of the school weekends or talk, that they don't talk about the human aspect of education. That these are real issues. People want to act like that's not political, but they're huge. And if we can, let me shut up by saying this. Something Latasha was telling me about when working with the kids that she works with and how she gets to know them and they get to know her. The wonderful impact that it has back home at that kid for the caretaker is, if they get a little bit out of order, they can say to them, now I'm going to tell Miss Latasha, they don't want to be out of order. And see, it helps the parent even get a better hold on a child. They've been trying to figure out, how do I get this more manageable? I'm just saying there are benefits all around that can happen if we talk about real issues that impact people around education. And I think a good school board member to me would be talking about that.
I think a good school board member would be talking about that, would be talking about the education that should be taking place within the classroom, and then talk about the education that should be taking place within our community. Yeah. There's more than one educational apparatus and location where education can and should be taking place.
True that.
If the young people are talking to you, that gives me some idea that they're comfortable, they feel secure, and they feel safe. And therefore, as a result of that, we need to be able, hypothetically or specifically, we need to be able to fund resources in a direction where kids are comfortable at, where they're willing to communicate, and where they're willing to learn at. That's where our resources should be going at. Understanding that there's some development that should be taking place in that school, and it must take place at school. But it also should be taking place within the community. And it's important for parents to come to school not with the intent of fighting the teacher and fighting the principals and fighting against something that they haven't used effectively, but coming in here with the idea in terms of how can we help this system work collectively together in order to address the educational needs of our children. There's some more programs that should be taking place. GED programs should be taking place for parents in community centers, at churches, and locations, but not just this thing where we're doing a lot of reading and writing all the time. I'm for that. But also there should be some other activities taking place within community centers.
Y'all hear that, school boy? Can you hear what James saying? He just gave you some tidbits that would make your campaign look great. If you could make education hip and desirable again. I mean, if you talk about it and bring it in a way like, hey, look, education is in. Everybody's getting it. That's right. Mamas and daddies, folks who ain't even gotten kids wanting to get some education, and make those who really are in line now to understand, hey, you better stay in line. You're going to need this all through your life. We need to make them feel that instead of thinking, well, what's her name? He didn't. Well, yeah, that's true. There are times when you can take off flight after you done learned something. You can't just skip all of education. There's some stuff you can learn, and then you actually may already harness the skill that some college or university could teach someone. Ain't nobody mad at that, and don't underestimate yourself at being at that level. But to know there are some stuff we all have to learn before we start thinking we can do all that.
And to that point, I really feel like as far as learning outside of just the school, there are some people who do feel comfortable in other environments. The school itself, it really caters to a specific type of learner that I think that if is exposed to other avenues, is carryover. I think one of the best things about the camp that you had, me getting that accomplishment from learning how to roller skate doesn't only give me excitement about roller skating, but it teaches me and excites me about learning in general, about my ability to learn and acquire skills. So I think it just requires a different approach. I think young people are still out here trying to learn. I think if you look up on YouTube stocks, if you look up stocks, you're going to see videos with millions of views. How many older people are hopping on YouTube watching stocks? It's not going to be the majority of your views. It's going to be younger people. Yes. And it's because young people want to be successful. But different than before, where college was the route to financial success, I think that young people truly believe that you can make success at any stage of your life. And that's why the question is going to become, how can we wire it to what's happening when it comes to the dollar? Because that's what my people move for. And when I'll be in school, it would be almost like a joke or ribbing at the teacher if you said like, well, how are we going to use this in real life? But as I've gotten older and started to think about it, like that should be a question that's entertained. Like, okay, I'll tell you how to use this in real life. This is how. Or like, and that's why what I told y'all with math, it was my dad, but it was actually my freshman math teacher. That was the first teacher when someone asked him, how can you use this in real life? He was like, this is how you're learning how to learn. You see how you got to break this down into 2 parts? One day you're going to run into a problem that's very complex. And you got to break it down into 2 parts.
Take your
divide it on each
dream.
side and prepare. So what do you want to do? And if I was like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, well, guess what? One day there's going to be a problem that you want to solve and get paid for. That's going to be very complex. And you're going to have to take it, break it down, and solve it and put it back together. Congratulations. You just learned it in my class. That's what we need teachers who are empowered to do. And so I will stand behind it. I'm in the community trying to teach it because this is what I believe will always be the vessel to getting where we want to get to. It's going to be our ability to communicate. So when I ask somebody, whether it's at a community center or in a classroom, how will this be useful outside of the class? They have an answer because that's what we're here for.
Excellent. And that's that form. That's that form, September the 12th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Friendship Baptist Church.
What's the address?
Friendship is 402 Clinton Street, Buffalo, New York, 14204. And those doors will open early, so get there.
Over by the JFK Center.
Right
If
across
it's
the
still
street.
there, right across the street.
We have a minute left, and as we close out, I just want to say, not just because I'm affiliated, but because of what you said earlier, for an option for those who aren't necessarily going to college. Success doesn't just require a degree from a traditional 4-year. There's money to be made in the trades. And so I worked there, but I took this job because I believe in their mission. If you need an opportunity, anybody age 18 to 80, we don't care about felonies, nor do we drug test. If you want a vocational career as an electrician, a welder, a machinist, if you want something to do with your life and success that you can give to not only yourself, but go anywhere around the country and have enough money to give to your kids, come to Northland at 683 Northland. We do tours 3 times a week, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesdays at 6, Wednesdays at 10, Thursdays at 4 p.m. Walk in and get some information because it's free. But to your point, that's what we need to do. So if you can recite that date again and then have your closing remarks, Jen, if you want to take us out, that's how we'll be ending the interview.
September the 12th, 2024, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Friendship Baptist Church, 402 Clinton Street. I'm in support of Northland. Of course, your CEO is a great man, Wilberforce University graduate, and certainly the HBCU concept is always a part of our mentality.
Well, thank you.
So Wilberforce, they're gonna have to pay us for that advertisement. Well, listen, this is a good show, and Latasha, thanks for sharing.
Yes.
Because Latasha she would prefer to stay back most of the time, unless you wind up the comment picture. Look out. But I always welcome because we got so much uniqueness in the studio, and we ain't all got the same thinking. And hey, I can't help because I'm brilliant. Now look at they laughing at that. But no, family, we love you. And seriously, when we're talking, we're really pouring it out, and we ain't hiding. So always feel free to join us. That's why we say that phone number all the time up front. And just stay tuned in because it's gonna keep getting hotter. I hope you understood the contents of what we shared today. This is rich. This was a whole lot of people got fed, and we wasn't mad. And those are candidates for the school board. Come on by the station, 143 Broadway. Yeah,
Jim, we're done.
They'll preach you at the death.
We're done.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Bye. Or did I say bye?